There is a silence in avoidant relationships that feels different. It does not sound like peace. It sounds like absence, like walking into a room where laughter once lived, but now echoes only with emptiness. This silence is not the calm before a storm. It is the calm after the storm has already passed. And in that calm, something irreversible takes place, the moment of no return. Two invisible lines cross here, moving in opposite directions. For the partner, the line bends towards self-preservation. Their body, tired of waiting, tired of explaining, tired of shrinking, simply refuses to fight anymore. Their nervous system no longer lights up at crumbs of affection, no longer trembles at withdrawal. What once felt like life or death now feels like background noise. Hope has drained away quietly, and with it the bond that tied them to the relationship. For the avoidant, the crossing feels like a sudden chill in familiar air. The push no longer provokes pursuit. The pull no longer creates relief. Their gestures, once powerful in shaping the rhythm of the relationship, now land flat, met not with desperation, but with detached indifference. It is in this silence that they first sense the truth. The dynamic they relied on has collapsed. This is the point where love itself changes form. For one, it becomes liberation. For the other, it becomes regret. There are no announcements, no dramatic exits, just a quiet recognition that the relationship has already ended, long before either speaks the words aloud. And from here, the only question that remains is not if things will change, but how deeply that change will reshape both of them forever. Every avoidant relationship carries within it a silent countdown, not a countdown of arguments or breakups, but something quieter, deadlier, a moment when two invisible lines cross, one bending toward self-preservation, the other toward regret, and when those lines meet, love itself changes shape forever. For the partner, this moment doesn't explode in drama. It arrives like a candle burning in an empty room, slowly flickering out while no one notices. It's the day their nervous system stops leaping at crumbs of affection, the day their heart no longer races at the sound of a message that used to mean everything. They stop chasing, they stop explaining, they stop carrying what was never theirs to carry alone. Hope doesn't die with a scream, it dies with exhaustion. It dies when cancelled, plans stop hurting. It dies when silence feels lighter than conversation. It dies when the fantasy of what could be is finally replaced by the reality of what is. The partner begins moving quietly towards self-preservation. They no longer beg for closeness, no longer bargain with their needs, no longer shrink themselves to keep the peace. What looked like patience was actually love on borrowed time, and that time has run out. For the avoidant, the point of no return feels eerily different. At first, it's just an unease, a shift in the air they can't quite name. They notice that their withdrawal no longer sparks pursuit, their silence no longer summons desperate explanations. Their sudden warmth is received, but with a calm detachment instead of grateful intensity. The push-pull rhythm that once gave them control suddenly collapses into indifference. And then the realization strikes. They may have lost someone irreplaceable. For the first time, their fear of intimacy collides with their fear of abandonment. The walls they built to feel safe have now become the walls that trap them. They thought distance would protect them from being consumed, but instead it has left them standing alone. Here lies the cruelest irony. Just as the partner finally understands their worth and refuses to accept crumbs, the avoidant finally grasps the value of what they've been pushing away. Just as one moves toward freedom, the other moves toward regret. Both cross the threshold at the same time, but from opposite directions, one walking out of the fire to save themselves, the other turning back too late, only to see ashes where love used to be. The point of no return is not loud, it is hauntingly quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't beg for answers, because the answers no longer matter, and once it arrives, the relationship is never the same again. Love doesn't always announce its shift. One day it flows effortlessly, like sunlight spilling through open windows. The next, it drags you through silent storms, demanding labor where once there was ease. This is the first warning sign, when connection becomes effort, and love feels less like freedom and more like survival. For the partner, it begins quietly, imperceptibly. Every conversation is calculated, every request weighed. Each expression of joy or disappointment becomes a careful negotiation. They hold back their laughter, they hold back their tears, they hold back pieces of themselves they thought were free. Loving someone who once felt like home, now feels like tiptoeing across a field of hidden landmines. It is like tending a garden scorched by unseen frost. No matter how much care, attention or energy they pour in, nothing blooms consistently. Every effort feels precarious, every moment of connection uncertain. The natural rhythm of affection disappears, replaced by strategic emotional management. Their nervous system, once open to closeness, now contracts at unpredictability. Love has become work, and the work is exhausting. Meanwhile, the avoidant experiences a very different but equally taxing reality. Every step toward intimacy feels like climbing a peak where the air itself resists. Invisible weights tied to the heart make each heartbeat a rebellion against closeness. They fight their own nervous system, suppressing the instinct to flee. Every gesture of warmth, every conversation about feelings, every attempt to reassure becomes deliberate performance instead of genuine connection. The freedom they once associated with distance now collides with the desire for intimacy, creating constant internal friction. The tragic irony is in their simultaneous struggle. One partner bends, adjusts, and calculates to preserve connection. The other pushes, flees, and performs to maintain control. Both are exhausted, yet neither sees the other's invisible labor. Their efforts pass like shadows, real, yet unnoticed. This is the unmistakable first warning. The relationship has stopped being effortless. Love has transformed into labor. And until this quiet war is recognized, the love they once knew will slowly become a battlefield, invisible, relentless, and inescapable. Hope doesn't die all at once. It seeps away quietly, layer by layer, until one morning you wake up and realize the air between you has turned into silence. For the partner, it begins with subtle fractures, the hope that their avoidant partner will change naturally, without coaxing or negotiation, slowly crumbles. Each promise left unfulfilled, each moment of withdrawal, each breadcrumb that fails to grow into real connection, carves hollows in the heart like water slowly wearing stone. Next dies the hope that words, conversations, or tears could repair what is fundamentally broken. Every attempt to communicate, every plea for understanding, every heartfelt explanation ends in the same silence. The nervous system that once danced at closeness now folds like a fortress in quiet surrender. They hold back their tears. They hold back their anger. They hold back the pieces of themselves they thought were untouchable. Love, once effortless, now feels like endurance. They stop chasing. They stop explaining. They stop carrying weight that was never theirs to bear. Finally dies the hope that love alone could heal. The love they carry, deep and unwavering, is no longer mirrored. They realize that love without reciprocity is endurance masquerading as devotion. The nervous system contracts, protective walls rising to shield the heart from repeated silent wounds. Meanwhile, the avoidant experiences a parallel, equally harrowing realization. The infinite patience they assumed their partner possessed is in reality finite. Their usual push-pull strategies no longer generate pursuit or anxiety. Their withdrawals, their sudden warmth, their emotional manipulation, none of it yields the control or reassurance they once relied on. For the first time, they sense genuine permanent loss. The tragic, cinematic irony is that both reach clarity at the exact same moment. The partner understands their worth. The avoidant comprehends the value of what may have been lost forever. But the timing is fatal. One moves toward freedom, the other toward desperate regret. The love they once shared dies quietly, not with arguments, not with drama, but in the silence of unchangeable truth. This is the breaking point, a quiet death of hope, a moment where reality can no longer be reshaped, only witnessed, painfully, irreversibly, and hauntingly. The storm has passed, yet the air between them hums with a quiet tension. It is a calm that masks 1,000 unsaid words, 1,000 invisible cracks. For the partner, this silence is not peace. It is exhaustion made tangible, a surrender that has crept into every fiber of their being. They stop fighting, not out of anger, but because the endless labor of love has drained them completely. Conversations that once held urgency now dissolve into absence. They stop initiating. They stop explaining. They stop pushing. Their nervous system has folded into quiet fortresses, guarding the remnants of a heart that has given too much. Every interaction becomes measured, filtered through the lens of survival rather than desire. Simple requests for connection are no longer taken lightly. Every gesture, every expectation is weighed against the cost of emotional energy. The partner's attention, once endlessly poured into the relationship, now quietly returns to themselves. They no longer react to the avoidant's shifting moods because their nervous system refuses to be manipulated by inconsistency. The freedom in this withdrawal is subtle, profound, and strangely haunting. Meanwhile, the avoidant experiences a paradoxical unrest. Relief comes first. The pressure to control, to manipulate, to coax reactions is suddenly lifted. But beneath this relief stirs a quiet panic. The absence of pursuit awakens a fear long avoided, the real undeniable possibility of loss. Their partner's calm, detached presence acts as a mirror, reflecting truths the avoidant has long resisted. Withdrawal, once a tool of control, now illuminates power they cannot reclaim, a void they cannot fill. The cinematic irony is stark. One moves into quiet protection, the other confronts anxious awareness. Calm and panic coexist, parallel, yet unaware of each other's depth. The silence after the storm feels deceptively peaceful, but it is not. It is resignation, and within this resignation lies a clarity both profound and unsettling. The partner sees themselves as they truly are, no longer prisoners of hope or illusion. The avoidant sees the limits of influence they assumed infinite. This silent shift marks a pivotal moment. The relationship no longer announces imbalance through chaos. The absence of emotional turbulence becomes its own signal, clear, irrevocable, and haunting. Both feel the weight of reality settling over them, and the truth is unmistakable. The dynamic they once fought to maintain has quietly, irreversibly changed. The fog lifts. After cycles of hope, disappointment, and emotional labor, the truth stands naked before them. For the partner, this is not a sudden revelation, but a gradual unveiling. Like adjusting to daylight after years in shadow, they see their avoidant partner clearly, not through the lens of potential or wishful thinking, but in the unflinching light of reality. Every avoidance pattern, every push, every withdrawal is no longer a mystery to be solved. It is understood, accepted, and acknowledged as an unchangeable part of who their partner truly is. The fantasy has died, clarity has been born. With this recognition comes freedom. The partner no longer hopes for changes that will never come. They stop making excuses, stop imagining different outcomes, and stop investing in what cannot exist. They see the avoidance fear of vulnerability, not as rejection, but as a fundamental truth that has shaped every interaction. Compassion replaces frustration, and peace replaces chaos. Yet the relief is tinged with grief. The grief for what could have been, for the life and connection imagined but never realized. Meanwhile, the avoidant confronts a startling truth of their own. The person they believed endlessly malleable, endlessly patient, is no longer caught in the patterns they once controlled. Their usual strategies, withdrawal, sudden warmth, silent manipulation, hold no sway. For the first time, they feel the raw weight of irreversible consequences. The partner's emotional independence is absolute. The power they assumed they had evaporates, leaving only the stark reality of loss. Panic rises, not from closeness, but from genuine recognition of something irreplaceable slipping beyond reach. The tragic irony is unmistakable. Both see clearly at the exact moment it can no longer be changed. One stands free, grounded in self-worth and unshakable clarity. The other grasps the limits of influence and control they once assumed infinite. The relationship is no longer defined by hope, fear, or cycles of push and pull. It exists now as a quiet landscape of truth, one person fully seen and fully sovereign, the other fully confronted with the consequences of patterns they cannot undo. This final recognition is neither dramatic nor loud. It is a still, piercing clarity, the kind that settles deep within the nervous system and reshapes perception forever. The partner's detachment is complete, grounded in reality and self-preservation. The avoidance panic is palpable, born from the realization that the love they feared to lose was already lost in subtle, irrevocable ways. After years of hope, heartbreak, and relentless emotional labor, the fog lifts. For the partner, this is not a sudden revelation, but a slow, piercing clarity, like dawn breaking after an endless night. They see their avoidant partner fully, stripped of wishful thinking, stripped of what could be, and illuminated by the unflinching light of reality. The patterns that once caused anxiety, confusion, and longing are no longer mysteries to solve. They are recognized as intrinsic limitations, not personal attacks, not failures to love, but immutable aspects of who this person truly is. With this recognition comes a strange blend of grief and relief. Grief for the fantasy they once clung to, for the version of the relationship that never existed, for the partner they imagined but never had. Relief because the exhausting cycles of hope, pleading, and emotional gymnastics have ended. They no longer expend energy trying to bridge the unbridgeable, manipulate the unmanageable, or reconcile the impossible. Their nervous system rests, their mind rests. Every interaction, every pause, every choice is now guided by clarity, not hope. They no longer hope, they no longer plead. They simply see, they simply accept, they simply move forward. Meanwhile, the avoidant experiences their own jarring truth. The partner they assumed would always accommodate, forgive, and invest is no longer bound by illusions of potential. Their usual strategies, withdrawal, sudden warmth, silence, generate no pursuit, no desperation, no compliance. For the first time, they feel the raw weight of irreversible consequences. The love they tried to manage has dissolved under the quiet inevitability of reality. The tragic irony is profound. Both see clearly at the exact moment it can no longer be changed. One stands liberated, calm, unshakable, and sovereign over their emotional life. The other faces the irreversible cost of patterns they could not undo, confronting loss in its most honest, unavoidable form. The relationship is no longer defined by hope, fear, or cycles of push and pull. It exists as a quiet landscape of truth, one person free, one person confronted with the consequences of fear-driven choices. This final recognition is silent yet piercing. No confrontation, no shouting, only stillness, clarity, and understanding that reshapes perception forever. Love is not about who someone could become, but who they truly are, and reality waits for no one. The moment of no return isn't announced with shouting, tears, or dramatic goodbyes. It arrives quietly, almost imperceptibly, like shadows slowly creeping over the life you once thought you controlled. For the partner, it is a subtle, undeniable shift from hope to self-preservation. They stop chasing breadcrumbs, stop explaining, stop bending for someone who cannot bend for them. Their nervous system, exhausted by cycles of hope and heartbreak, finally rests. Every effort that once felt urgent now feels unnecessary. They stop pleading, they stop accommodating, they simply see, they simply accept. They simply move forward, liberated, sovereign over their own emotional reality. For the avoidant, the moment lands like a jolt. Their usual strategies, withdrawal, sudden warmth, calculated emotional distance, no longer elicit the responses they relied on. The person they assumed would always accommodate, forgive, and invest is no longer bound by illusions of potential. Panic rises, not from closeness, but from the unmistakable awareness of real loss. The irony is profound. One moves forward with clarity and calm, while the other confronts the irreversible weight of absence and consequence. This crossing marks the quiet death of the relationship long before either person fully departs. Love, hope and struggle give way to clarity, detachment and understanding. One experiences liberation, the other regret, and in that contrast, the story of their bond is fully revealed. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to explore more truths about relationships, clarity, and self-preservation. The journey doesn't end here. It begins anew for those ready to see clearly and honor their own worth.